Alrighty then. I say good evening to my family. I am grateful to be able to on the stream live, awaiting some more of my family to come on as we enter into our second day of Kwanzaa Conversations. Looking forward to what I pray will be a useful interaction in connecting cultural experiences and offering opportunities for all of us to learn. So I'm appreciative of this experience, and not just to learn its culture, but also to check out the technology, to figure out the technology, to figure out the do's and don'ts of StreamYard. So this is me doing what I can do to get things going related to utilizing the technology that's available. So I'm exploring, expanding my experience with StreamYard, and it is finding a useful tool to communicate. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone who's able hanging out with us. I had sent the link to folks, so hopefully they'll come on. So listen, today is let's kind of again. I want to pay homage to my father, to those who've gone before us, who've been a part of my development and our um, experience in learning about my culture, learning about what this particular principle means, and having uh, a sincere value in my culture and in my heritage, uh, which also enables me to value the cultures uh, and the giftings of other cultures. I think that the only way you can really appreciate someone else's culture is if you appreciate your own. So I embrace this fully, and I'm grateful for the gift and privilege that my father has afforded to my family by virtue of introducing this to us at a young age. Um, and without having all of the symbolism in terms of the Kanara, which is the means a candle holder that has seven candles for symbolic of the seven uh, principles of Kwanzaa, the 7 days. Um, Yesterday, the first candle would have been Umoja, and it would have been the black candle, and black represents our people. The land from which we've come represents the fullness of black people. And then to the right, facing the candle, to the right are three red candles, and then to the left is to the right of that candle is three uh, green candles. So red, black, and green, of course, are the symbols of our heritage and our people. Black being not only the representative of Africa in terms of a place from which people of African descent and black people come, but it also denotes the blackness and richness of the soil, the fertility of the soil, the way in which the soil has all that is required for sustenance and for our capacity to prepare and to provide for ourselves. And so the soil is the means by which we come together for uh, various communities or places in which we live, but we are also able to be productive and contributors to a collective sum total. So that's this. The black is the soil. Green is our productivity. Hi, Lewis. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me, Lewis?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? You're unable to hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Let me see what's going on. Mic is unmuted. You're not able to, you can't hear what I'm saying? All right. Let me see. I don't know what's happening here.
You can't hear me there?
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you. I don't know why.
I'm unmuted.
Um, is your mic muted? See if your mic is muted.
It's not.
Hmm.
Now it is.
Listen,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, I can't hear you at all. I'm not sure why that is.
I can
It's
leave and come
weird.
back.
Wow. I'm using, as you know, StreamYard. This is the first time I'm using that with this. Why don't you come back on again? Go off and come back on again, if you don't mind. Yeah. So it's all part of learning. So I embrace it, and that's part. I guess you can say it's part of productivity too. The green part, color green is our productivity, our growth, our ability to produce. We're producers. Historically, in antiquity, we've always been producers, and that's why our sojourn is so tough in a place where we are consumers. The fact that we are we are able to adapt to and create for ourselves, and why this, which is part of why this particular principle of Kujichagulia is so vital to our own sense of personhood and worthy of discussion because of what it ultimately means for us historically, but even more so today. I think perhaps in no greater time than ever before, we need to have an understanding or at least a way of grappling with what self determination means, what Kujichagulia means. So let me finalize the description of the three colors, red, black, and green, with the red. The red is the symbolism symbolic of our the blood of our ancestors, the blood shed for our struggle, the blood shed and sacrifice as our foreparents gave their lives, knowing full well that in their giving of themselves in the struggle for justice and for freedom, that they were that the blood was the sacrifice and the seed, if you will, that would one day precipitate our freedom. Our mothers and fathers historically could not have imagined what we today enjoy in terms of the freedoms that we have. And because of this, when we do things like vote, we do things like train ourselves and or educate ourselves, when we do what we need to do in terms of coming together, and when we do what we're doing right now as it relates to affirming our culture, our heritage, our sense of who we are, then we are certainly reflecting and respecting, for that matter, the blood and the ultimate sacrifice of our parents. that is that ultimate sacrifice, I think, provides for us a foundation of a solid um, commonality, common struggle and history and heritage of hurt and help and hope, along with the promise of the productivity that we've always been able to engage in, regardless of what our circumstances have been, and then the soil, the blackness, the common experience of being discounted, denigrated, despite our brilliance and beauty, uh, that has been the focus of our denigrations, but has also been the beauty of our brilliance. Because it is our blackness that, while it's hated by others, is so desired and exploited by others. And if we could value ourselves, if we could embrace our own selves and who we are, then we would certainly be able to be in a place where others would have to do that as well. I mean, it's one thing I heard, and I've preached this on several occasions as well. It's one thing to affirm and declare that Black Lives Matter, but it's a totally different thing to actually live and treat each other as if our own lives matter by virtue of how we speak to each other, by virtue of what we do for each other, by virtue of what we, um, of how we affirm one another. So, this is certainly a part of it. I think what I'm gonna do is maybe that will help. Something's not right with this mic. So I think maybe I had the wrong mic in. So I will figure this out. I think that as I learn what to do, it becomes is let me do the speaker from the system. The mic is from the. Yeah, I think we're good now. I think we're good now. I think we're good. All right, so hopefully family will come on and family will come back. However, in the meantime, I'm again strengthened by the um, the meaning of what Akuji Jagalia has to say to us. I want to invite those of you who are streaming with us, perhaps, to let me see if I can. I'm seeing your brother Cigar. I'm seeing your response here. And greetings to you as well. Happy and blessed Kwanzaa to you. How about now? Is it better? I'm hoping it's better now. Let's see. All right. All right. Brother John, Sister June, I would love to, Sister June, I would love to get your perspective on Kuti Chagalia, what it means to you. What has it meant in terms of your own sense of somebodyness, or how has the principle of Kuti Chagalia been um, an important guiding principle in your own thinking and action? I am of the mindset to say, just as the scripture discerns, as a person thinks, so are they. And so, if we think in terms of self determination, choosing our own future, determining how we respond to what happens to us, then we're able to uh, determine what happens. We may not be able to control what happens to us, but we can control what the outcomes may be. And of course, as we look at our current context, we're in the midst of probably one of the most important political cycles, election cycles in modern history, probably even more so than what happened in 2008 with President Obama. I think that in addition to hit the mobilization of a nation to even embrace a person of African descent, I think there is a certain self determination that may even have precipitated from that that is even more critical because it is about people who are from in a southern state and who have historically been, and some, too many, have been historically purged and disconnected, but are now in a place and in a moment where we are decidedly in a place of determining an outcome that we absolutely can impact. Because of that, this principle perhaps has even more of a application and implication for what is emerging before us now. So that self-determination means that we choose for ourselves, we define for ourselves what the future ought to look like, and we embrace that unapologetically as we look at, for instance, the what is happening on a national and global scale, given the lens of and the reality and the pressure and the push of a COVID pandemic, where given through crisis the gift of determining what ought to be, what can be, what should be. On the level when you look at like emerging and available vaccine that has some problematic issues related to it, particularly as it relates to access, distribution, safety, efficacy. And given what we know about vaccines and what we know about viruses and their capacity to mutate and to learn and to change and to morph, we are, inundated with some real critical choices that we need to make. But these are choices we have to make for ourselves. And while I applaud the many frontline uh, physicians and frontline um, first responders who are stepping up, who are from our community, who are stepping up and who are taking the virus, taking the vaccine rather. I also have to, you know, constantly be of the mindset and the understanding that there is a need for our community to make the kinds of decisions that those are self determinations. Those are ways in which we are making it clear that we are determining what's important to us, and we're determined not to operate in fear based on our past. We identify and recognize our past, but we're not stuck to it. But it is a process of deciding, what how things would be, uh, and then to be in a decision making mode is about the capacity to affirm the fact that we have the right to make a decision for ourselves. It is the antithesis of colonization, of enslavement. And yet, one of the amazing things about our community is even as enslaved persons, we had amazing and brilliant ways of being self-determining, even within those very sick and apoplectic systems. We had a way of deciding, when we would and how we would engage. The way in which we created some of the art and music and the way that we even created inventions that made our work easier, the way that we bent the the demands of a very stressful system to create communities of support where we created languages of communication that allowed us to share with each other uh, helpful and healthy means of cohabitating and being resilient enough to survive and even thrive within those systems created for us, I think the very means by which we were able to determine the outcomes. So I think that this particular principle of Kuji Chagalia has awesome implications for us now. We again, if I point back to this recent political cycle that we've emerged from and are continuing to have a strong factor in, knowing that it has been our vote, it has been our vigilance in our vote that has been the turning point for the nation and for the world. We've seen 4 years of, and 8 years really, maybe even 12 years of some of the most amazingly brutish obstructionism and downright anti-human, anti um, anti-justice, unjust, and just I want to say the words evil. I want to say bigoted. I want to say the words like brutal types of repression and repression ever. And yet, we continue to thrive. We continue to move in ways that position us, and by the grace of God, put us in places where we can be self-determining, where the decisions we make an impact. And aside from our political and social um, activism, there are many of us who are determining to be achievers, to be builders and producers, to take seriously what it means, the symbolism of red, black, and green, if you will, to produce the kinds of our own collective businesses. And we'll get into that with our subsequent um, Kwanzaa Conversations, where we are connecting our resources, collaborating our resources, collaborating our competencies and skill sets to create business opportunities, to create trade both in the states and overseas without making a whole lot of noise, without being featured on various media formats, but doing the work of collaboration, national and international collaborations. We are being self-determining, buying land, creating our own areas where we can have safe communities, free from the bludgeoning and bigotry and the bullying that oftentimes is a part of being living in this state in this country where our ethnicity, our beautiful melanation, is for some an abhorrent license to be inhumane and savage. I think that we have we do some very important coming together. I love the way in which we create, and we don't make much bones. We don't do much have self advertising, self aggrandizing. We just do it because it's within us. It's a part of us, and we are a self determining people. So I just want to lift up and celebrate what Kuji Chagalia means in this moment and the implications that it has for us as we move into what I pray will be an even more empowering future. I am of the mindset that while this year has been tremendously challenging for us, 2020 was tremendously challenging for us, I think that in many cases we will find that there will begin to emerge many, many, many stories, and we should not be surprised of how our collective communities have combined. I know that, for instance, here in Douglas, churches have come together, our people, our members have been unified and united and have joined hands, joined resources, given and shared in ways that we would not have done so otherwise. That in the emergency of a pandemic, of heightened inequalities and heightened hyper surveillance and inequities that we face and address and deal with, we are in a constancy of collaboration and sharing. So that in and of itself means that we are determined to enable ourselves to survive, to strive for, and to validate our own choices based on our own sense of who we are. And so as we do this so politically, as we do it economically, as we do it in terms of our health, determining for ourselves, I got to get on the health, as you know. Try to that we are more intentional about how we take care of ourselves. So we don't wait until we get into a crisis mode, but that we recognize that there are certain foods, there's certain types of foods that we definitely need to ensure that we take advantage of. The vegetables and non-processed foods, the foods that are not so loaded with sodium and sugar. Being self-determining means that I am choosing to be healthy, choosing to take care of my body and my mind, choosing to live in the way and choosing to rest, choosing not to allow for my environment to stress me out. I mean, I can choose how I respond to things. I mean, I can choose to, take a deep breath and count to 20, whatever I need to do, and just kind of, sit back and chill a little bit and not be so reactive to things that's happening around me. These are, when I think of self determination, it's both personal and it's public. It's individual and it's collective. And so go the individual is implicitly impactful about the public or the social or the collective, because the weakest individual, the most vulnerable of us, reflect a vulnerability in the whole. We can't simply look at ourselves only. We have to also be connected to and related to the well-being of others, which gets into, of course, Ujima, uh, and the whole aspect of collective responsibility. So, as we get ready to go into that in our next conversation, I simply want us to embrace the power of self determination, of not letting other people define you, but defining you for you, of defining what's important in your life and what's important for your future, and what's important for your well being. Not letting others tell you what's beautiful, defining what's beautiful for us, defining what's success for us, defining what uh, power is for us, and defining that in a way that doesn't have to subscribe to what other people think. So, therefore, this whole comparison game, where I have to sort of be on the same par with you and do what you do in order to be accepted, is something that I don't necessarily need to do. Because when I'm determining and I am defining for myself what success is and what power is, then I take that power from you and embrace that power for myself. So really, self determination is empowerment. It's self empowerment. It's a manner of really enabling my own uh, mindset, my own programming, my own um, what do I want? I guess I want to say my own uh, discernment and standing on that. Hey, bro, Daryl, bless you, man. Uh, and what's up, Carl? By having a the strength enough to decide what's important to me. Every time that you eat something that is healthy for you, that is self determination. And like Carl would agree that when we work out, when we take care of our bodies, we're also choosing to have a future where we'll have a viable presence of engagement. Because as much as we might affirm the fact that having a certain, amount of money or a certain kind of status or what have you may feel like that's success, but what good is that if you're unhealthy? If you're not able to, really thrive within that, to fully engage in that whole experience of being a contributive partner in what else you are, what is becoming a reality at that time. If you can't do anything with it, if you can't really embrace it, if you can't contribute to it, if you're unable to be productive, if you're unable to exhibit the strength of your presence, health is critical. Now, I'm not saying, because some of us are dealing with some health challenges that are it's not our fault. I mean, we're predisposed to certain things, or certain things that were genetically transferred to us, and yet the power. So then self determination becomes a different way of a different definition rubric. So then strength for you is just being able to uh, have faith in spite of that particular, along in the midst of that, uh, through that, the special enablement. I don't like to call it handicap. I like the idea of special enablement, because I think that when we have certain maladies, if we look at it, because here again is what self determination is. It's about looking at things in a way that are helpful and healthy to you. If you let others define your malady, then they will define it in a way that not only do they control your approach to it, but they also control how you think about it, how you think about yourself. And nobody deserves that kind of power over you. You have to determine that for you. And so you have to look at, even in a sickness, or even in some kind of physical impairment, how that's special enablement. Because and I know it's easier said than done, but one of the things that we have learned when we look at the lives of sisters and brothers who have suffered whatever tragedies or whatever challenges, to be able to come back from those setbacks and still, in a different way, engage. That is self determination. To take the onus of something that happened to them, some kind of impairment, a loss of a limb, a loss of a loved one, a loss of income, a loss of someone significant, and then to flip that, to say, I'm not going to let that define my future, but I'm going to survive. It's like, Psalm 118, and I want to say 19. I will live and not die and declare the wondrous works of my God. It is a decision about my future, that I have decided I am not going to die in that. I am not. It's almost like we were talking the other day about Dr. Millicent Thompson's book, Don't Die in Your Future, where she used or recycled the remorse and the grief and the hurt from a failed marriage, and from a very embarrassing moment in her career, in her life, and wrote about it, put it in words that just ministered to millions. Her pain was in such plain language that everybody could interpret it for themselves. She didn't tell people how to interpret it. It was something of a self-determining um, enterprise that people were able to embrace it for themselves. And I think that that definition, that sense of defining for yourself, is part of what empowers us to special enablement. I want to say this finally as I get ready to close, because I only want to be like 30 minutes or so. And for whatever reasons, family is in and out. And I guess maybe perhaps the difference in this technology, and we'll have to deal with this because you got to go with the changes. This change is happening with the availability of technology and hardware and software, and we have to make changes. You have to do what you have to do, and that's part of the heritage that I embrace fully. And you have to make the adjustments, and you have to keep pushing forward. You got to keep moving forward, no matter what. So I appreciate very much you all hanging out, and I appreciate my sons and my daughters and all trying to get on. And my son was on for a second, and I had some issues and some challenges. But anyway, this last thing I just want to kind of say is just kind of celebrate the way in which we are able to take the negative, if you will, and flip it. Uh, that the things that we've endured on an international and national scale, historically and however, and the things, if you think about 2020, I want you to really consider how you have been the embodiment of Kujichagulia, how you have taken the negatives, the setbacks, and you've discerned a way to reinterpret it, to live through it, to see the beauty amidst the ashes, to emerge from the dearth, uh, the the to emerge and create despite the dysfunction and the depression and the discouragement, and to still keep getting up. To keep, I want to salute you. I want to salute you in the spirit of Kuti Chagalia, and therefore see the Kuti Chagalia as a moment of celebration. It is about choosing, but I choose to celebrate you. I choose to celebrate your willingness to even believe that there is a future to define that can be, to even decide that you have something to look forward to in spite of what has happened in the past. You're still here. It's kind of like one of my favorite poems by Langston Hughes. Still here. I'm trying to remember from verbatim. It's like I've been um, I've been beat and battered. Snow has frizzed me. Sun has baked me. Look like between them, they done tried to break me. Stop laughing. Stop living. Stop loving. I don't care. I'm still here. And that I I think is, I'd like to suggest and posit, is a attitude of self determination. We know Langston Hughes wrote during the Harlem Renaissance, during the 20s and 30s. We know that his pithy and very substantive and sometimes sardonic musings have created a crisis of consideration and awareness to the extent that it makes you think. And even in this, we're not told what to think, but we're told to think. We're told to consider, to ponder. And I'm eternally grateful for the wealth of heritage of a people who have been the uh, benefactors, the shapers, the progenitors of self determination. I want to pay homage again to Dr. Maulana Karinger for having the insight and foresight this of these principles and of this cultural celebration. And I want to appreciate the way in which we have the opportunity to pass this on, to continue to celebrate it, and to work in a way that allows us to embrace it and redefine it for what's happening now. I encourage you to join us on tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock again for another part of third in our Kwanzaa conversations in this 2020 celebration of Kwanzaa. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I hope that you'll share this. And I hope that tomorrow you'll kind of come back to me with some comments and some of your own perspective on next, I believe, is Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility. And so I pray that you'll join with me in that conversation. I think you'll find it very relevant, again, given the manner in which we are engaged in uh, thrive, strive, and survival mode amidst this pandemic. We're at the end of 2020 and we're coming into 2021. We're stepping into another moment in a brand new decade. And this is a season of self determination. Thank you so much again. God bless you. I want to speak the blessings of the Lord on you. The first thing that comes to mind is 1 John 4:4. You are of God, little children, and overcome them. For greater is He that is in you than he that's in the world. And of course, then the attitude and mindset that the Apostle Paul exemplifies in Philippians 4, verses 12 through 13. I've learned how to have nothing, I've learned how to have much, and I've learned, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I want to leave that with you and the blessings of our God, who does all things exceeding and abundantly, above all we can ask or think. Have a nice evening. I hope to see you tomorrow evening. I hope that you will have a productive day tomorrow. Be safe and take care of yourselves. God bless you.